This nigga. Yo. Fuck. Hey, man. I be questioning y'all motherfuckers who be up so damn early, bro. I ain't really sure if I trust that shit, man. I ain't gonna lie, cause I be thinking to myself, let me get up before everybody else get up. And I'm up, I'm doing shit. You know what I'm saying? Yo, I done, I done, I done fuck. I done brushed my teeth. I done washed up. I done got dressed. I been up for like an hour or something. How the fuck you already up, bro? Huh? Why? Why are you up so early? Have you not been to sleep yet? I mean, it ain't but 5 o'clock in the damn morning. What? What are you doing, bro? What? What are you doing? It's late. I just left Eastwood Street. Okay. Cause good God, I thought you was just getting up. Take your ass to bed, boy. God damn. Goddamn zombie over here. I've been up. Who stays up to 5 o'clock in the morning? God damn. Nigga, you not at the club? This motherfucker. Oh yeah, like he at the club. This is not the club. This the PlayStation Club. That's where we at. It is a club. It's the PlayStation Club. The elite. This is the elite club. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have member access to get in this shit. This motherfucker shit I was at Club PlayStation till about 5 o'clock this morning. I was leaving. I seen Trap House coming in. I waved to him on my way out. Damn, most people give blood and pass out. This nigga gave blood and got energy. He weird as shit, dude. Motherfucker weird as shit. I gave him some blood. That shit gave me a second wind. I saw him taking the needle. Here we go. Damn, this is ruining all my laughs.
Oh, okay, you can leave already. Goodbye.
Damn, motherfucker say Club PlayStation. I was at Club PlayStation at 5 o'clock this morning. You call it Club PS4. You know what I'm saying? That's how the hip kids say it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I appreciate you hollering at me early this morning, folks. Always good company when you come into the stream, man. Hope you have, get you some good rest, have some lovely dreams, and you know where I be at, man. I'll let me later on, bro. It's Club PS4, nigga. Exclusive. We got the regular section, then we got the pro section. We don't call it the VIP section, we call it the PlayStation Pro section. You know what I'm saying? That's where I be sitting at. With all the pros and the hoes.
I didn't try to move today. I don't got no energy. I'm just like,
Yeah, I finished. There's like some minor side quests that are still left in there, but you know, I done got it out of my system. I'm not in a rush to go play the game anymore. The main storyline was the fucking shit, yo. Oh yeah, we about to do it OnlyFans.
oh, now you.
Oh, that's real talk though. I might have to do it OnlyFans, bro. You know what I'm saying? It ain't gonna be me though. You ain't gonna see my face on that shit.
Whose face they come see? Something wrong with your neck?
And that cyberpunk story, the main story was the shit though. COVID season.
This stuff tastes so good.
Yep. Motherfuckers gotta have alternative sources of income. Some passive income. You know what I'm saying? Put some videos and some pictures online and let that shit rack up the bucks. All you gotta do is sit back and let it rack up the bucks. That's why I keep hella archives.
Facts.
Mr. Cheerio. Never. I started a new sketch yesterday. I varnished the painting yesterday too. Where is it? Oh, it's back. The last one, no, not the last one I did. The one before the last, I got that one varnished. Started a new painting. Printed out some more pictures. So I can start another canvas today. I'm gonna go ahead with my Toe Jam series. I've been kind of procrastinating on this just because the feedback that I get from the art community. But it comes a point where you just gotta say, fuck it. I put some of the pictures online just to see how people would react to it, and there was a lot of positive reactions, some negative reactions, some females talking shit. One guy said some dumb shit, but other than that, everybody else just loved the image. So this is gonna be something I worked on.
Why do you want to paint feet? I think it's nice.
Oh, you know that shit, bro. You just got to do it. Oh yeah. I needed a house. I got a house. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be a part of a museum collection. Got that shit. That's why I say 2020 been all right for me, yo. You know what I'm saying? I can't complain, bro. Just set a goal and work towards that shit. Got that? I'm still upside down. It go this way.
see right there, just a little bit where the paint was chipped, but still, that can be fixed.
That bitch was just hating.
Mm-hmm. I swear, because tattoo feet look so good. It's just something about girls that just got a tap on their ankle or their foot.
Mm-hmm. I might have to get you a toe ring.
I ordered some off Amazon. Gotta pick them out in person.
Yeah.
Them things turned. They said they were real. They turned green the first moment I got them.
No. I ain't gonna lie, you're like Boscov's.
I like Boscov.
They always got. I mean, Boscov's is not a. It's a department store, but their selection of jewelry is always good. You're like, all my bracelets and rings. I brought all my shit from Boscov's. I got some diamond earrings from there. I got a diamond ring from there. In my last relationship, like, that's where I got all the jewelry from. And by it being like this weird ass kind of like department store, they always got like 40% off, 50% off jewelry, and you catch them on holidays and Valentine's shit be 70% off. I remember one time y'all got a damn $800 pair of earrings for like $200 or something like that. Like right at 200, like $190 or some shit like that. Yeah, for an $800 pair of earrings.
Yeah, that's crazy. Their stuff is good quality too. Like interlaced toes.
If it was two pair of feet.
Oh, too bad.
Ooh, I can get two girls. I need brown skin models, y'all. Be trying to holler at brown skin people, yo. Nobody won't fucking fuck with me, yo. But like some pretty light skin feet like this, and some pretty another female with pretty brown skin, and their feet touching each other. Let me say got pretty toes.
But I'll let her touch my feet though.
But I need pretty toes.
About kind.
Huh?
About kind.
I seen both of their feet. They wear open toes. Like if you notice, watch with Glenn. She rarely wears open toe shoes. Rarely.
She got long sleeves.
Yeah, and they got a little knuckle on it.
Yeah, I can tell. She's so
You can look at her. You can look at people's hands and kind of almost see, kind of imagine what their feet look like. But she, I don't think.
And it's so weird too how your ring size. Well, not for y'all, but for us, normally our ring size is our shoe size.
That's nice. That's nice. See, motherfuckers be like, where you get all your ideas from? My art community.
But even if we did like use her and then we just use my foot to cover that part of her,
just to see her skin tone,
her skin
color,
tone,
yeah, that could work.
Or Connie because she's darker.
Yeah, I was gonna say that to Connie in the meeting last night because she's pretty brown. I like her color.
Yeah, and she got nice, like her skin's not fucked up at all.
And her husband, he's a big dude, and he got his dreads are like fucking here. So I'll probably message her this weekend. I know she's busy as fuck, but like, yo, if you and your husband have some time, would y'all want to model for my paintings and shit?
Yeah, because like if I was back home, I would probably I could just
call
her
daughter.
I was gonna say I could just call Simone or Sanaya and get one of them to do.
That's what I'm saying, and it's not.
Simone got nice feet, but they're 3 hours away.
Exactly, but bro, I be trying to. I was even like when I was on the dating sites and shit, like Plenty of Fish, like when I would holler at girls and they wouldn't say anything, even if they were pretty, I'd be like, well, look, if you don't want to date, we can just like, we can work together and do no matter like.
That's because on dating sites, dudes that want to take pictures of you, normally they'll be like, pose like this. Okay, now get naked and go take this picture.
And that's what I try to tell people too. Like over the years, my portfolio has become so big that I have a digital presence, and I tell people, Google me. I'm not trying to brag. I'm legit, yo. You can Google me about my art. If I don't take nothing serious in my fucking life, yo, my art is the one thing that makes me who I am, and I can't tarnish that. And so when I deal with models, I always just try to be professional as hell because I don't want any model to ever be able to badmouth me about the way I conduct my business and say, oh, well, this guy, all he wants to do is just touch on your ass, and he tries to fuck, and he's a perv, and like, no, I don't do that shit, yo. When I photograph models, yo, that shit is business. It's creative business. That's it, yo. But people do not want to fuck with me for some reason.
Or like that one chick who tried to give her your card, the dark skin chick.
A casting website.
Mm.
And then there was like
Maybe
some
people are skeptical about those too, because I get all those custom websites, and then they call you 1,000 times a day, and then I'm just like.
Then there are like some websites for local models and Craigslist and all that shit. But on top of that,
Craigslist killer.
Once again, it's my area too, bro. It's like the demographics. My art is black as shit. I try to, mainly paint black people, and the area I live in is, we're a super minority in this area. You know what I'm saying? We're like 5% of the population. So it's tough in that aspect alone just because of the general area I live in. And then on top of that, people being, not as knowledgeable about art and, not taking it serious. And so it's a weird thing. But, the culture up here is slowly changing. The art community is growing. And I'm a part of like every major art organization, institution, group around. So like people do know me now, but still it's like I still find it hard to get models. I just find it super hard to get models. Like I say, so I've painted this model a couple times already. I paint her again, and now the new model that I have, and she's actually a very professional activist in our community. Very smart lady, yo, but she's pretty as hell too. So we did a photo shoot, and I started this one, and I may do this one as well. But but now I need like more photos. So this is one, two, three, possible four more paintings, which just isn't a lot. And so I gotta finish one, two. So that's three, four. I got five paintings right now. So I mean, this would keep me busy for a little while, but I definitely need more photo shoots. But at this now, we're going into the winter, and that just makes it even harder. Like you guys have no idea, yo. Wintertime where I'm at, yeah, it's almost impossible to get a fucking model to do anything. And so I keep once again playing around with the idea of doing like some still lifes, like maybe put some fruit and some flower pots or some shit. I don't fucking know. I don't know. But something. But even yeah, you were supposed to go to sleep how long ago? 20 minutes ago. Just like my damn aunt. Can't just leave. Bye. I see y'all next time. Okay. Oh, don't forget about that chicken recipe. No, girl, the other one. You remember the one we was talking about last week with the lemon pepper? Yeah, that one. But you gotta bake it. Okay. Yeah. So don't forget about that. And that pepper, I got that from the flea market because James, he got a new spot down there. James, Margaret's nephew. Yeah, he going into business for himself. All right, I'll holler at y'all next time. Whole nother conversation start. Can't just leave. Oh, I'm sleepy. I'm about to go to bed. But you know what? OnlyFans page. Motherfucker see some boobs and was like, ah, ah, second win, nigga, second win. Oh, yarn that fruit bowl. Oh, come on, man. Hey, man, fruit bowls is classic, man. you mean? See, when I paint fruit bowls, I got the paint downstairs, man. Don't make me go downstairs and grab the paint. Let me see if I got a picture. Yo, my teapot series, man. When I paint teapots and fruit bowls, that my shit be hot. And white people love that shit. I gotta head home. 40 minutes later, motherfuckers talking about if the Redskins gonna beat the Cowboys. Man, I thought you been supposed to leave. Man, my teapots be so shiny. My flowers be so floral. You know what I'm saying? Teapots. That shit hot, son. Man, my fruit bowls. See my little, you can't hardly see my little bowl of lemons. And don't make me go grab the paint, man. Fruit. Might just paint some teapots. Huh? Do some little just still lifes. Some little shit like this. He talking about yarn. This what he want to see, stuff like that. He want to see paintings like that. I can't paint like that all the time, man. I gotta paint some shit for other people. Ooh, dope ass drawing. That's true. That's true. No story, no message. It's just beauty. It's just pretty. And that's why I say, man, a little bit of diversity for everybody. I gotta have some art for everybody, cause some of my shit be too deep, man. People be crying when they see that shit. Like, it's so sad. It's a tragedy, you know. But then they need something to just look at that shit, be like, oh, that is so nice. Look how shiny it looks, cause people like shiny shit, man. I don't know, you know. Follow the charm, and whatever. So I paint some shiny teapots, some fruit, you know, something for different people, man, so they can just have something nice to look at. That's all I did for a long time. We just paint nice looking stuff, pretty stuff, and then once I started putting like meaning and messages in my shit, I couldn't go back to just the nice, pretty stuff all the time. You know what I'm saying? Now they say my shit gotta like kind of mean something for the most part. Like the next set of paintings, these are just some pretty paintings. You know, the one model, she's just a pretty woman. You know what I'm saying? And now the weed and the feet, that's fetish. That's my fetish art because I love toes and I love weed and I love weed and toes. You know what I'm saying? Call it toe jam. Mm. Got a new strain. Call that shit toe jam. Has kind of like a citrus vinegar taste to it. I love it. I thought about doing some stuff like that, but there's this one other artist I know, and like that's like 90% of his artwork is like slave history and shit like that. I thought about it, but the most I've ever gotten like towards any kind of slave narrative is I did the book of Frederick Douglass. the narrative of an American slave. So by putting that book in the painting, I am talking about, you know, telling you to read this story of a slave who escaped to his freedom. And this is what we had to endure. You know what I'm saying? So this is a story about the life of a slave from an actual slave. And then, of course, with this piece, you have Nat Turner, 1831, with the slave revolt, where Nat Turner and his gang of about 25 men killed like 60 white people, men, women, and children, trying to get to their fucking freedom, going from farmhouse to farmhouse, killing massive and everybody in that bitch. You know what I'm saying? So is it directly like a look at directly at slavery times and how shit was during slavery? No, but I do hint on different, you know, slave narratives in my art.
Come on, you're getting hair all over.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like to to visualize that, I would need the setting, the models. You know what I'm saying? In order to capture that image, I would have to have everything set up. Get what?
Reach in front of the camera. Give me the lighter.
Come sit on camera. It's like a chair. No. Y'all want to see her?
No, they don't.
Yeah, trust me, they do.
This is my presentation to the world.
Looking like she about to make some slushies.
Slushies.
Hello. Would you like a goodie slushie? Oh yeah. But the one artist I was talking about, yo, I've been for years, and I actually messaged him one time, call and ask like how he constructs his paintings, because you can, when you look at his art, it's most of his images are. Oh yeah, of course the troll bait. You know they're gonna come heavy. Is so black, and he really puts a lot of. He's Haitian, so he puts a lot of Haitian history, and Kervin Andre. Yo, when you look at his shit, yo.
Hey, how are you? It's beautiful.
Yo, and they talking about they want me versus him with his art. Like this nigga is off the fucking chain, yo.
You could do that. Y'all have different styles, I feel like. You could do that. You could definitely. Now that you could do better.
But like he put a lot of Moorish history, a lot of Egyptian history. Like this just from this year, yo. He did all these paintings this year, yo. This nigga worked.
That's beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. Now that was the one.
Motherfucker worked, yo.
Who was that? Chadwick?
He did 2 of them. Like this motherfucker act like he do a painting a week or some shit, yo. Black Panthers, Jigga Man. But like his shit is like put so much fucking African and Haitian history in his shit, yo.
I do my head.
So I want to call him and talk to him and be like, yo, how do you edit your photos before you go about painting? Because all your shit is a collage. So I know you have to take several images and combine them. And like, what programs on the computer do you use in order to do that shit, yo? And where do you select your images from? Because some of these older images of like Haitian soldiers and stuff like that, you didn't go photograph that shit yourself. So like, what kind of photo catalog do you use to fucking pull your images from? And how do you assemble your collages? But
That's really early as shit.
it's
I was 5:30.
5:30 in the morning.
Been up since like
4 something.
team no sleep.
No sleep.
And this model right here, I like that sexier picture of her with that blue thing.
That's that scarf that was in the laundry. I said I found that shit on the giveaway table. As soon as I seen that shit, I was like, yep, snatching that.
I have a bunch of scarves, so if you be bored, got them in storage.
Yeah, but where is he getting his reference sources from? Yo? Like when you see like, I said that's just a couple of his images, yo. But when you see like his whole catalog and how he put all that shit together, like yo, where do you get these pictures from, yo? You know what I'm saying? Because I be having trouble using other people's images and incorporating that shit in my art. So that's why I try to use as much of my own original imagery and take my own pictures as possible, yo. But like I said, with his shit, you can tell like there's no way for you to just go take that picture. It's a historical picture of some fucking Haitian soldiers and shit. So, but I keep thinking about doing like some Black Panther shit, yo, because I love the Huey P. Newton story and what he did for us, yo. But then, like I say, man, motherfuckers do that shit too much. I want to paint like James Baldwin, but everybody done painted his ass.
Just do it and do it better, that's all.
That's why I try to find ways just to like incorporate it, but not really. Like as many pictures of Malcolm X have been painted. So in my painting, his book is there, you know, and it has his face on the cover of the book. So I kind of painted Malcolm X, but not really. And the same thing with Dr. King. Like an image of Dr. King is on the cover of his book. And so I painted that into my picture. So I painted a picture of Dr. King, but you know, not really, but I did. Oh, I'm not insecure about shit. You know what I'm saying? I just know a dope ass artist when I see one. Like his shit is the shit, yo. No, my shit is just as good, but his main theme throughout his art is like that black liberation type shit and how he constructs his shit. Like I said once again, most of his art is a collage. Like my shit, I don't really put collages together. But he don't live far from here, so I know like one day me and dude probably do a show together, yo. I can feel that shit coming, yo. Cause he only in Jersey. So watch in the next year or two, he either gonna invite me to some gallery shit in Jersey, or I have some shit over here, and I'll invite him to PA, and we'll do some shit together. Ooh, that'd be dope. Some sci-fi shit. Yeah. I need I need one more piece for my self-reflection series, and I have that done. I said I want to do this foot fetish series. I really want to like tackle some imagery on like police brutality in America. I mean, this situation was going on for so fucking long, and a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, why don't paint something about the cops and shit?" So it just I want to like figure out imagery that is that is different, that'll keep a lasting. I got tons of ideas, yo. It's all about just getting that shit organized in my head, yo.
I had to think about it.
Hmm?
I said I had to think about it.
So what's going on in the news? We had some volcanoes erupting in Hawaii. Uh, Europe talking about they got a new strand of COVID that's 70% more contagious and
Oh yeah, mutated strain.
yeah,
Another one.
60% more deadly or some shit like that. So volcanoes, a new COVID. What else? What else was popping yesterday? Oh, they talking about your $600 stability check. Yeah, yeah. Somebody did the math. 900 $900 billion. If every adult American gets $600, that's 300 million times 600, which is you know 1 billion and something. And then it's like no, like it's a couple billion. Then like where the fuck is the rest of the money going? 80% of this new bailout is going to corporations and big businesses and other interests and shit, not to the public, yo. After
And
you
then
do the math,
how they sat there all year and argued about how much we should get paid, and how much did they get paid?
yo, these motherfuckers getting thousands and thousands of dollars in bonuses and all kind of shit, yo.
They probably make $400, $500, $600 a day. Some of them probably make more than that.
Oh, definitely.
That's on the low end. They making four,
And
five,
now
six
it's
hundred a day.
$900 billion, and everybody gets fucking $600.
But that's why that whole when they say that trickle down effect, it does work, but it doesn't work because it's like if I go and support somebody who has less money than me, and then they support somebody who has less money than them, or whatever, it's the cycle that keeps going. But the rich don't really give a fuck about nobody. The only time they donate is when they're gonna get a tax break, and that's why you don't really see a lot of people really giving back right now. Like Amazon is giving people jobs and stuff, but I have yet to really see. I did see his ex-wife donated like 40 million to Howard, but does she get a tax write-off for that? What does that do for her? What is the why Howard? What does that do for her?
I think the COVID vaccine make people susceptible to the new strain. Never thought about that shit. What if they're
What
actually
if it's giving it to you?
weakening your immune system, like you say, so that when that next wave hit,
Well,
you'll
again,
be more susceptible to it.
I went out like this was like back in March, and I would never. Don't talk about me, y'all. I wouldn't do it no more. But I went out and protested back in March, and the first protest I went to was probably like 500, 1,000 people. The second protest I went to, it was like three. Like we were on the news, like helicopters out there, all of that. It was like 3,000 people, and basically none of us had masks on. None of us got COVID. Nobody had like I didn't have COVID. I got tested twice. I worked around people. I worked in a doctor's office, and even when I was in the doctor's office, when I worked at the front desk, I was taking people's temperatures every day, like literally, like, and you're like this close to them, like I never got COVID, so I don't know. I just feel like
That's the thing, though.
you
Like,
got hit by a bus. Oh, you got COVID. You got the flu. You got COVID. Oh
That
yeah,
sounds
your
so
eye hurt,
stupid.
your eye twitching. You got COVID.
Now, is it real? I
Now it
think
is.
I think there is whatever that shit was in China that had them motherfuckers over there sick and dying, that made China feel like they had to build 3 hospitals in a week. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's something to that shit. But once again, is it as catchy and
But
as deadly as they say it
but the
is?
but the lab is right there in Wuhan too.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it just a coincidence? And then I remember that there was their American doctor who they paid that advance. They paid him like, I can't remember if it was 5 million or 5 billion. I want to say it was a million, but they gave him like a house and all of that. And I told everybody, like, you were talking about it too, but like this white doctor in particular, he's not from over there. He's an American doctor, yeah. And I told everybody, I said, watch, mark my fucking words, he's gonna get locked up. And then several months later, they locked him up for having something to do with it. So it's just like, the same motherfucker working at that same lab in Wuhan, right near the seafood market. And then if y'all had an outbreak, why would y'all let people travel for Christmas and
that's
the American and the Chinese New Year?
That's what I'm saying too, yo. Like that shit, goddamn.
Just like the mask.
It don't make no sense. Yo.
That the video of those dudes, I want to say they were Middle Eastern. I'm not sure, but they were just stomping on the mask and shit. And then I seen a video of some Asian guys doing it, like just stomping on the mask with their feet, got them on a bare floor, and then they putting them out, sending them out for package. So I don't know. But the Dems got their win. They won. So I'm not really sure like where this shit is going now. Like, what are the Democrats?
Military lockdown in all the governments in the Western world because everyone's going to be impacted. Release a flu-like virus that will be genetically. And there are a lot of indicators that this is being set up. And in this rollout of this crazy scenario, where it is intended that there will be a limited nuclear exchange in the Middle East, the idea is that as the world looks upon this with horror, then they will demand from their governments that there are heavy controls over travel, over communication, over people who meet, over people who protest in the streets. They want to make sure that they don't have crazy bombers on airplanes, crazy bombers in the shopping malls. They want to make sure, and because people will be driven into fear by this, they'll request and demand and insist on heavy controls from their governments, which will be justified. And this is where you're going to kind of get the martial law situation in all the Western countries. It's intended as a justification. All of this is just the start of something, because this story gets much bigger, and it's pretty horrifying. And if watching this now you're feeling a little bit shocked, this is how I was feeling when I heard this information, and this is how our source was feeling when he was hearing this information in this meeting. This is just the beginning. Now, during the time of this ceasefire, everyone's shocked, everyone's frightened, everyone's really terrified about where this is going to go. There are all kinds of heavy controls over populations everywhere. And then the next thing that happens in this chess game that's being played is that biological weapons are released on China. You heard this being discussed in this meeting. They will release a flu-like virus that will be genetically targeted against the Chinese population. It's racially targeted against the Chinese people. It's designed to spread like wildfire and to knock out a large number of the Chinese people. And these people in this meeting were laughing about this. They said, China will catch a cold. Those were their words. China will catch a cold. And they were laughing about the fact that these biological weapons will wreak havoc among the Chinese population. And after that, then what effectively will be a kind of plague will actually spread right across the world to the West as well. Our source was not clear whether this was a Chinese retaliation or whether the thing would just spread out of control. In a way that it would be
2014.
very understandable. if it
He
did
said the
have
conversation
a
comes from
huge
2010.
things actually
Yeah,
mutate.
because it's older.
So now you've got a situation where there's been a limited nuclear war in the Middle East. There's a pandemic that really is sweeping across the world and really is killing people very visibly. And you've got this totalitarian military lockdown in all the governments in the Western world because everyone's going to be in panic about all of this. And then, he said, then the real war starts. Something that would be justifiably called the Third World War with a much more major nuclear exchange. And
12 monkeys. And yo, I heard this other guy, and this was in 2012. He gave an interview saying that he said it would be Ebola. He said they're gonna bring back Ebola, and the only thing they have not been able to incorporate yet is lockdowns and quarantines. And he said they are going to have a global plague, and they will implement lockdowns and quarantines, and they're going to use Ebola as the reason. But you know, everybody got over Ebola, so now we had to come up with this new extra scary COVID-19. And yo, how he described that shit, yo, in 2012 is this scenario right now. He described this shit perfectly. And this guy in 2014 is talking about a conversation he heard in 2010 where they describe a scenario where a biological outbreak happens in China that has flu-like symptoms that will wreak havoc on the Chinese population and then mutate and spread globally and induce global lockdowns. How are these motherfuckers saying this shit like years ago?
And so many movies and shows about it.
Yo. And then somehow our governments weren't prepared for this shit. That don't make no sense, yo. But all these analysts, all these motherfucking forecasters and all this shit, yo, and y'all couldn't predict how dangerous and how fast a new pandemic would cover the globe, and what you would need in order to sustain the health of your citizens through medical facilities. Like, that shit don't make no sense, yo. The Korean War. I know we had some wars with Korea, but I mean, like, what specifically? Yo, Chinese always ready. Yo, I think China is trying to set itself up to make a move, a real power grab. The only reason America is still holding on as the world superpower is because ever since World War II, we just fucked everybody up with our military, and that's the only thing we've really invested in. And we've continued to like build military bases all over the world to control everybody. You know, we are the empire. We are the American empire, and we're global with our military, and that's the only thing, because our economy is
China got all the good stuff.
our economy is shit, and the only thing we have is our army. And so,
but that's the thing, like the China don't fuck with us, but at the same time they be fucking with us. That's the thing about it. Like,
yo, China is setting
they
themselves
playing
up.
both sides, but we playing both sides too. So I mean, shit, they just doing what we doing.
Yeah.
Playing both sides.
But
That's what America does best. Play both sides.
They so secretive with their military shit, and they had their leaks about China trying to make super soldiers and shit. Once China is setting themselves up to take global power militarily. The only thing America has is our military. That's how we keep everybody in. But when China's ready to pop off, they're going to take control of the global scene economically and militarily. And it's no decades, like China is an economic powerhouse, and everybody knows that shit, yo. Everything is either made or assembled in China.
But then that's the thing is like, so what are their people working for over there? Like, but I'm just saying, like, what are their working conditions and what are they, working for? So it's like, we could do some shit over here if we wanted to, but don't nobody want to pay more for
Oh
shit.
yeah, that part. Yeah, China don't play. You know what I'm saying? China don't fuck around, bro. And they China and Russia got agreements too. Like
Those are our two.
I say, motherfuckers, and we might lose the stream, yo. But yeah, you don't want to fuck with China or none of their allies, yo, because they not scared. And 3 out of every 5 people on the planet is Chinese. They got strength in numbers, yo. You know, they got people to burn. You know what I'm saying? They got people for days. So just by the numbers, you don't want to fuck with China, yo. They making super soldiers, and they always on that fucking trying to stay ahead with the robotics and all that shit, man. These motherfuckers probably got mechs and androids and fucking invisible camouflage and all kind of shit we don't know about already. We probably got a lot of the same shit too. I know for a fact, yo, the U.S. got fucking like exoskeleton suits, and I think we got like cloaking ability, like invisible armor and shit, yo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you talk about human rights violations and shit, man, you gotta look. I look at different cultures, bro, and
their
they
culture
shit
is different, but
that
still
shit harsh and it seems rough, and we don't get it, and I understand it. You know what I'm saying? Because I wouldn't want to live underneath, a fucking Arab type regime or a Chinese communist part. Like it just that shit just seems harsh. But at the same time, when you look at countries like that, they keep their history intact. They know who they are. They know where they come from. They know their grandparents, 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 grandparents. And that's because their culture is so harsh and so strict and so regimented in a way and so structured that they keep every Western, European, all that influence, they keep that shit out, yo, as much as they can. You know? As much as they possibly can, but Western ideology is just seeping into every culture around the globe, yo. And English is already the global language, so it's hard for them to maintain their way of life when now the world puts them under a microscope and says, well, you're doing that wrong, and we don't do it that way in our culture, and that's human rights violations, and that's just how they motherfuckers been doing that shit since the Bible, yo. The U.S. is European and Western ideology is the new kid on the block. Africans been doing this shit for thousands of years prior. India and China, hella older than the European countries, especially America, Canada, Australia. Like motherfuckers been living this way thousands of years prior, and they just kept their way of life, yo. Shit be rough, shit be harsh, and shit just seem weird as fuck, but I said it helps them keep their fucking history intact. Like some African tribes with the scarification, how they just put all these scars and shit on their face, stretch their lips all big and shit. Like, damn, y'all do some crazy ass shit, yo. But yo, that's a part of their fucking culture. That's their history. That's how they keep in contact with who the fuck they are, yo. But we ain't invade shit. I think every war that America gets into, man, we invade motherfuckers, yo. America has never been invaded, and that's the thing. Like, once again, like we have military bases all over the globe, but how many countries have military bases on American soil? That's how you know we the empire, and that's how we invade every other country, and nobody gets to. I mean, we have embassies here for other countries and shit, but motherfuckers ain't got no military bases in our country or on our shores. Had got no naval bases off our coast and none of that shit like we do in other countries, yo. Shit weird as shit, yo. Like we're the only nation that hasn't been invaded yet. Every time when you put tanks and armored vehicles in the streets of other countries, yo, you invading them motherfuckers, yo.
Babe.
Hmm? Uh, I don't know. Uh, I can only trace my history back to a sales slip for one of my great grandparents. You know, once we go that far back, and then we get to that receipt, a receipt for sale, that's as far as I can go, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I come from the lip plate tribe. Uh, Guerrilla warfare, invasion. That's more like espionage, I guess. I wouldn't say it. Once again, if you invasion seems like to me on a larger scale. You know what I'm saying? Sending a spy. If we send somebody from the CIA over to China to go watch some dude at a corporation, or you know, is that guy alone in invading? Yeah, I guess you can say that it's an invasion. I see your point. At the same time, like when I think of invasion, I think about army, military troops, tanks, motherfucker walking around with guns and shit, telling the locals to stay the fuck in their house. Yo, why can I never find this fucking clip again, though? This one dude fucking screams that shit out. Nope, nope. Oh, it's fucking crazy. I can't find that shit. The 80s version? I don't think I see the 80s version of Red Dawn. I seen the remake of that shit, yo. They did that shit in like the late 90s, early 2000s or something. The Red Dawn movie. When China fucking invaded America, yeah. Then they made a video game like that shit too, yeah. Yo, what the fuck? I cannot find this one thing I'm looking for, yo. Hmm? Hmm.
Babe.
Hmm?
I'll let him answer that.
I doubt it.
She don't even like other dogs. She's mean as shit.
Yeah, my uncle did that shit. They got a dog, and then they got another dog to keep the first dog company. And,
Yeah, honestly, I think we will have to get a puppy because she loves people, but every time she sees another dog, she be at their neck. She got to be the queen bitch in here, so and she's fixed, so we could get a boy, but it would definitely have to be a puppy because she don't play nice.
at all.
I wish she did, so we could just like let her roam around. But if she sees a squirrel or a cat or a dog, gone. She's the only dog I've had too that just always wants to be up under us. Like she don't want to be outside if we're not outside. But if we're out there, she'll stay out there all day. Oh my
You sleepy? Going back to sleep?
god. I'm gonna stay up,
I can't find that shit, man.
but I am sleepy. I'm actually, believe it or not, kind of getting hungry, but that's because we've been up since 4:30. Oh my goodness. Damn, now I kind of do want a second dog.
See? See what you did?
Yeah, I think we need like just like a little puppy. But we can get a boy. Because I don't need two female dogs. But yeah, we can get a boy. And yeah. Who will cool up? I'm not even going to answer that. I'm going to let you guess first. I'm going to let you guess who will cool up.
Hey, is there anything you want to listen to real quick? We've been in here for an hour. I need to draw for a little minute, yo. All I gotta do is pull out a ruler and straighten some lines out, but.
Like musically or
Something like.
person?
Yeah, something.
Um,
Education. It's art and education.
Young, yeah, I like Young Pharaoh. I like, I don't know. I had to think about it. Like, who else? I'll have to look at my list.
The battery died on me, so.
Enough said. Yeah, he woke me up. Always. I never wake him up.
I'll probably go back to sleep for a couple hours, yo.
What is it like? I want to watch something short.
Yeah, just on something. I don't know. Go to see what's on Bright Insight. You ever listen to him?
Great insight, man. I like Psych the Dome. What's that other one that always has the videos?
Didn't realize this canvas was fucked up until after I opened it. But oh well, I'll make it work. Gotta make it work.
Best of the Voice. I'm not gonna lie, I'm subscribed to that. I don't know why, but Best of the Voice, like the show The Voice.
Oh wow.
But when I tell you, remember when I played that song "Kiss from a Rose"?
Mm-hmm.
And there was the one white group, they did the acapella, the dudes, and then
That's
the
what
girls,
show they did it on?
yeah, and then the girls did it too. Both of those versions that came from The Voice, and then the dude who was singing "Try a Little Tenderness," Chris Weaver, The Voice. So they got some really, 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 really good singers on there, and I'm talking about better than the people that are famous now, because they're hungry, like they train for this. They got professional vocal training, and that's just the difference. Daily motivation. Everywhere Psychology. Well, this is an interesting channel.
What's that?
Bandora's Bobo Doll Experiment.
Bobo doll.
Yeah. Sweaty T-shirt and human mate choice. Drugs in the brain, cannabis, drugs in the brain, opiates and tranquilizers, alcohol, tobacco. The psychology of love, the brain and sex, why we fall in love. Freud, addiction in the brain. All right. Yeah, I have a lot of like psychology subscriptions, but sometimes the stuff gets a little. Emoji, he always got something good to say. Pursuit of one. The man who floated away into space.
Hmm?
No.
I don't know. It's just interesting.
I mean, just something different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Robotop said Canvas then.
Hmm? Yeah. Yeah, I heard you.
Got some good eyes. Okay. The man for relevancy speaks.
Show me the one whose safety deemed such destruction.
Is the man for
You must reunite it with its own kind.
You expect me to search the galaxy and deliver this creature to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming on Disney+.
I'm not sure how long it's been. My only reference points now are distant stars and planets that basically all look the same and don't appear to be moving much from here. The radio and GPS cut out some time ago, and the manual propulsion system engines were damaged in the initial collision. I've since been drifting alone and disconnected in some unknown direction towards something or nothing. I suppose both are sort of the same to me at this point. I can only assume I'm moving rather fast considering the speed at which we were hit, but it honestly feels more like I'm just floating in place, like I'm submerged in a literal infinity pool with no edge or surface. My only hope left is that this is some strange dream or hallucination, and I'm still on the ground somewhere, soon to come back to reality at any moment. Admittedly, early on, when the reality of this whole situation really first started to set in, I seriously considered that as a possibility. I guess hoped might be more accurate. My brain's imaginative, wishful nature trying to conjure up and sustain its last bit of artificial hopefulness, almost convincing me that what is real isn't, and vice versa. I've since given up such hope, at least of that form. I realized around the same time that I had a decision to make. To either continue on in terror and paranoia, fueled by the hope that there was something to be done, something I could do, some other way this whole thing could go. Or I could sit back and enjoy the stars. The decision was pretty obvious. I'm going to die, and no one can save me. And I only have so much time left, and I'm going to enjoy it. I float through the void now, free. Perhaps more than I have ever felt or imagined before, totally and completely free. I feel infinity play with my limbs as its laws of motion carry me, like a child's plush toy. I just let it. I do not flail. I do not fight it. I just float. I think about where it might be taking me, where I will end up, what distant space I will float onto, what my final view of everything will be. You know, I have seen the same night sky nearly every night of my life, and I've had the great fortune of being in a profession that has given me the opportunity to see it from all sorts of different angles, close and afar. But right now, swallowed up by it totally, with no sight of home, further out than perhaps anyone has ever been, it looks completely different. Or perhaps it feels completely different. Either way, in this, I realize now more than ever just how used to the insanity of everything we so easily become, to the grave, imminent dangers of living and moving through an unending and unknown space, the unfathomable depth of potential and mystery that is just a short float above our heads at all times, silenced by humility. Be the only thing cursed with the tendency to reduce the magnificent to tedium, to analyze beauty into ugliness, to reduce our incredible position to misery. We are so small. It took no more than one cycle of oxygen for essentially all clear traces of home to disappear from my vision forever. All the greatest heroes and sages and leaders and so on. From here, I don't see any of them. We forget that we are a life still in its adolescent years at best, yet to even really leave home. Our species still filled with the angst and juvenile rebellion of a teenager. The universe must laugh at our arrogant ignorance, our smug righteousness, our poutiness. We still think we know everything, but we know damn near nothing about anything. Like our pioneering ancestors of every form, discovered lands and worlds and ways of being that we take for granted now as the status quo. Great unknown lands of the future await us. Great unknown manners and knowledge of how to live and be. Unknown turmoil too. Casualties of this kind and far, far worse, of course. To grow up, to age, to toy with the universe and venture out into the unknown always carries its great uncertainty and risk. But it is perhaps one of the most beautiful imperatives of our kind to do so. To live is to be afraid. But perhaps to center that fear on something that unites and grows and reveals wonder is to be afraid with some purpose. I don't know. What else could life possibly be but a series of new horizons, new views, a constant rediscovery of beauty and wonder. I'm going to die a casualty of this cause, and I wouldn't want it any other way. If I have any remaining wish, it's that this was not all in vain. This fatal mission and every pair of shoulders that it stood on, every prior fatal mission, every prior successful mission. I hope that more and more of my kind will see and feel what I do right now with less finality and more intention, to continue on into the darkness, bringing the lights of their own creation, illuminating the heavens and revealing them as new homes. Today, the great frontiers are above us, into the once believed heavens that we need not be dead to touch. We can touch them now. We will. We will if we can survive our teenage carelessness and anguish and avoid the irreversible self-harm that so many adolescences fall victim to. If we continue to grow and learn and survive together, we will live together up here somewhere, into forever. We either live together or die together. I don't know how long my suit will survive after me. I don't know if these words will ever be heard by anyone else. No matter the case, I'll be okay. I'll be dead. But if anyone does find me, or rather what was once me, if anyone finds this recording, please know that I was happy while speaking these words. I have lived a good life, an aesthetic voyager who lived and died by the space that enthralled him. If you have not already, I hope, even if just for a moment, you see and feel what I do right now. I hope you see past me. I hope you find reason to continue as a string of life, extending further and further out, reaching with excitement and wonder into the infinite yet continually insufficient frontier. Don't cut the string short for trivial, absurd reasons. If it's absurd to continue, then it's absurd to cut it all short. And if you can't find the reasons to continue, my friendly suggestion is, make them up. A group of scientists, spacesuit engineers, language experts, historians, and technologists, all working with the International Orbital Debris Monitoring and Recovery Program, look down at a strange audio playback speaker device as it concludes the last recording contained on it. It is attached to what can only be surmised as a half-burnt spacesuit helmet, some stripped parts of the neck and upper torso portion of the suit still attached. It appears somehow futuristic and otherworldly, yet entirely human and familiar, almost blending science fiction with basic, simple human engineering. All the materials are known and traceable to Earth, and the suggested body shape is mostly anatomically consistent with a human. The logos and symbols on the spacesuit, however, after having been extensively analyzed, appear to not match anything known by any space program, private or federal. Additionally, the surviving technology components appear fairly advanced, alluding to some sort of high-capacity oxygen sustainment system and advanced temperature regulation and damage resistance, some of the mechanics even still functioning, none of which quite match any known current technologies, but all of which seem to be understandable through some reverse engineering. The audio recording, after sufficient cross-analysis and expert translation, appears to have been spoken in a strange blend of different, but still mostly known, ancient languages, and it is essentially fully
Alright, let's see. World War I Christmas truce, when the British and Germans became friends for a day.
I heard that story.
That's so funny to me. What is the best spy plane of all time? Everything you know about aliens in Area 51.
Jack shit.
Terrifying urban legends that turned out to be real.
Ooh.
Science experiment proves afterlife is real. And Death Row, Japan versus United States. What's the difference?
Okay.
Regular things that are illegal in Russia. Anything stand out?
Look up. I can't think of his dude named Chills.
This sounds kind of cool though. The best spy plane.
The best spy planes ever.
You watch that?
I know one of them is probably the V-Wing.
Also, this Death Row, Japan versus United States. These are like short videos. So.
How long? Yeah, you can watch that.
This world is one of legend. Many realms.
Imagine a prisoner sitting in solitary confinement, waiting to die. He has no idea when it'll happen, but he knows it's inevitable. Think of the fear, the anxiety, the stress this prisoner must feel. He wakes up every day not knowing if it's his last. He falls asleep at night not knowing if he'll be pulled from his bed to die. The prisoner awakes for the day. He sits alone with only his thoughts. Water trickles down the sides of the windowless concrete walls that make up his cell. He's pacing back and forth when there's a clunk. The door to his cell unlatches. It swings open. When the prisoner looks out through the open doorway, all he sees is a long, empty hall. He cautiously exits the room. The door at the far end of the hallway slides open with a hiss. The prisoner walks slowly, unsure of what's to come. When he's halfway down the hall, the door to his cell slams shut and locks automatically. The only way to go is forward. He enters the doorway at the end of the hall. The glaring light from within the room blinds him. Standing in the room is a hooded figure. In his hand is a noose. The time has finally come. The wait is over. The prisoner walks calmly over and allows the noose to be placed around his neck. He's relieved that the wait and the not knowing is finally over. The hooded figure leaves the room. It's silent again. Time goes by, then suddenly, the floor beneath the prisoner drops. The rope tightens. The execution is carried out. This may seem like a cruel punishment from earlier times, but it's not. It's happening right now. This scenario is part of being a prisoner on death row in Japan. Let's compare the death row process of Japan and the United States. You'll find some of the practices in these two developed nations to be surprising and not as developed as you might think. There are only 2 first world democracies on the entire planet that still execute their own citizens. These 2 nations are Japan and the United States of America. On average, Japan incarcerates far fewer people than the United States. In Japan, out of every 100,000 people, 39 are sent to prison at least once in their life. In the United States, about 655 people per 100,000 are sent to jail. This disparity between incarceration rates may make you think that Japan has a better prison system and therefore a more humane form of death row. You might be shocked at what we uncover as we explore the death row practices of Japan and compare them to the US. Death row is the term given to the time from when someone is convicted and sentenced to death until the execution date. Let's start by looking at how Japan and the United States differ in the sentencing of prisoners who end up on death row. In the United States, a person who is arrested has the right to remain silent and an attorney present during.
I command you to give me your name. It's lazy now. They were faking people doing a fake exorcism and that shit turned real.
Question. This may seem normal to a lot of us, but that's not the case in Japan. When questioned in Japan, the accused is not allowed representation. They may remain silent, but as we'll see, this tends not to work out. In Japan, police can keep suspects in custody for up to 23 days without evidence. There have been reports of Japanese police torturing suspects, both mentally and physically, to get a confession. It wasn't until 2016 that Japan instituted a mandatory video recording of interrogations. Unfortunately for the suspect, this only applies to 3% of Japan's criminal cases. The only interrogations that are recorded are for serious charges such as murder. All other interrogations are done in secret. In contrast, the United States justice system requires that there be a third party present during questioning of a suspect. The prisoner can waive their right to counsel, but this is rare. Even in these uncommon cases without a lawyer present, the interrogations are still monitored. One main reason for this is to keep police from forcing a confession using unreliable methods. The United Nations and other human rights advocates have concluded through numerous studies that confessions through torture and inhumane practices are almost never reliable. Unfortunately, the Japanese criminal justice system does not see it that way. Iwao Hakamata was arrested and later convicted for the murders of several people in Japan. He claimed he was subjected to more than 240 hours of questions over 20 days. There were no video recordings of the interrogation process, so we'll never know what actually happened during that time. However, the amount of time Hakamata spent in custody is undeniable. Iwao was one of the few who appealed his death sentence and was granted a hearing, but the hearing never came. For 5 decades, Iwao sat in solitary confinement on death row, making him the longest-serving death row inmate ever. Recently, his sister, with the support of various legal organizations, convinced the district court to order a retrial. The district court decided to free Iwao to await his retrial at home. He was released from prison due to his fragile mental state after spending almost 50 years on death row. Unfortunately, Iwao is still waiting for his retrial, and if found guilty a second time, he could go back to prison. Until then, Iwao sits at home, waiting to see if he'll become a free man or return to death row. In the United States, as in most democracies, confessions obtained after more than 200 hours of interrogation are ruled as involuntary, unreliable, and cannot be used as evidence in court. This is not the case in Japan, which may be why the country has a 99% conviction rate. When there is someone arrested for a crime and a confession is secured by police, regardless of the means, that person is guilty. The evidence against them may be shoddy and they may have been tortured, but that does not stop the state from convicting them. Prosecutors tend to only pursue cases they think will lead to a guilty verdict. This is practically everyone who is brought to court. Since crime rates are so low in Japan, someone who is brought to court is already assumed to be guilty. Jurors automatically assume they've committed the crime even before hearing the evidence. This leads to an easy conviction and a high conviction rate. The United States also has a high conviction rate. In the US, conviction rates have risen over the decades and are currently around 90%. However, only Japan can boast a conviction rate of 99%. With higher conviction rates, are there higher execution rates in Japan than the US? The most recent data from Japan reports that 24 people were executed between 2012 and 2016 people in a year. In 1998, the Japanese Justice Ministry released a report that stated 7 people were executed in 1 week, which was the largest number of executions in that amount of time. Regardless of how you feel about the death penalty, the United States execution rates are startling. In 2018 alone, 25 death row inmates were executed. That's more than Japan executes in 3 years. In 2019, 22 prisoners were executed in the US. This is just 2 less than all of the executions in Japan between 2012 and 2016. Japan may have a higher conviction rate than the US, but the US executes many more prisoners than Japan does. This may be shocking, but there is of course also a massive population difference between the two nations, meaning more criminals in one than the other, and thus more capital punishment. Once convicted and sent to death row, do inmates have any rights? In the US, there are human rights organizations that monitor the conditions for inmates on death row. Almost all of these human rights organizations agree that the death penalty and the preceding trial violate the prisoner's rights. And it's not just inmates on death row that have it hard. These conditions for regular prisoners in the US can be harsh. If you don't believe us, watch any of the other infographic show videos on prisons. I think you'll be surprised at what you find. In Japan, things are a little more tricky when it comes to basic rights. Like in the United States, death row inmates can appeal to the Supreme Court for another hearing. Unfortunately for the inmates in Japan, just because you appeal does not guarantee you won't be executed before your case can be heard. There are multiple accounts of prisoners who requested retrials and were executed while waiting to hear back about pending court dates. The law in Japan says that the execution must take place within 6 months of the court's decision. In reality, the executions take years, but just because you have a pending retrial does not mean you're protected from being executed in Japan. One problem that plagues both countries' death row inmates is that many suffer from mental illness. This factor is often overlooked, and when these prisoners are put in isolation, their conditions can deteriorate rapidly. Both Japan and the US keep death row prisoners in solitary confinement until it's time for their execution. These harsh conditions of isolation
found a coupon code for $221. We're literally about to check out without money. That is
weigh heavily on older inmates. For this population, solitary confinement can lead to an increase in physical disabilities, causing excruciating pain for older inmates. 2 of the most profound differences between death row in Japan and in the US are the date and the way prisoners are executed. In the United States, execution dates are set in advance. This is considered to be better for the inmate's mental stability. Japan, on the other hand, does not give predetermined execution dates. Instead, inmates on death row in Japan could be executed at any point after being sentenced. Many don't find out they'd be executed until the morning of their capital punishment. This often leaves inmates with only about an hour or 2 to prepare themselves for what's to come. The UN Committee Against Torture has criticized Japan for this practice. The psychological strain of not knowing when the execution will occur is literal torture, not only to the inmate, but to their families as well. It is true that the United States prisoners do get a request a last meal. Some prison systems honor everything an inmate asks for, but others do not. Either way, death row prisoners do get a final meal. Since there's no set date of execution in Japan, inmates do not get a final meal on the day they're to be executed. If you had to guess right now, which country do you think would have a more humane execution? Would it be Japan with their surprise executions, or the United States with its high number of executions? Is one way better than the other? We'll let you be the judge. In Japan, executions are carried out by hanging. The inmate is blindfolded and a black hood is placed over their head before they're executed. To release the executioners of their burden, 3 prison officers simultaneously press the button for the trapdoor to open. This way, they'll never know which button pusher was ultimately responsible for taking the prisoner's life. In the United States, things work a little differently. Most often, the prisoner is executed by lethal injection. The deadly cocktail varies by state, but normally it consists of some form of paralytic before a final poison is administered. This is often done by people without any medical training. It makes sense when you think about it, as administering the chemicals to kill someone would be in breach of a medical professional's Hippocratic oath. But unlike in Japan, the person who is carrying out the execution knows without a doubt they are the ones who deliver death to the inmate. Also, unlike Japan, the United States allows execution methods to be determined at the state level rather than having one standard federal policy. Some states even allow the executee to choose their method of execution. States like Alabama and Tennessee in the United States allow their prisoners to choose which method they'd like to die from. This led to some inmates asking for execution by electric chair. The electric chair was discontinued after it became considered more humane to use chemicals to kill a prisoner. This could be because the outward appearance of someone being cooked alive by electricity is less desirable than a prisoner that quietly drifts off to sleep and then dies. But in states that allow prisoners to choose their form of execution, several have opted to go by electric chair. Another form of execution that prisoners in the U.S. have chosen to die by is firing squad. In 2010, Ronnie Lee Gardner was killed by firing squad in Utah. Is it more humane to let someone decide how they'll be executed? Maybe, but if you take into consideration the mental health of prisoners, it's probably not. One of the most surprising differences between the death row in Japan and in the United States has to do with the general population. Japan has a much higher support rate for the death penalty than the U.S. 80% of Japanese citizens support the death penalty, whereas in 2018, only 54% of United States citizens support the death penalty. Even if you disagree with the way Japan carries out executions, the majority of Japanese citizens do not. The differences between death row in Japan and death row in the US are clear. What is less clear is if one is better than the other, or if there should be a death row at all. In 2019, Japan approved a decision to stop using the death penalty by 2020. Huge amounts of pressure were put on them by human rights organizations, including the United Nations, to abolish the death penalty before Japan hosted the Olympic Games. The resolution was submitted to the heads of the government in Japan. The death penalty has still not been abolished, but to be fair, the United States has hosted the Olympics several times in the past, most recently in 2002, yet the United States still uses the death penalty. Apparently, not getting rid of death row to host the Olympics is something Japan and the US have in common. For more prison facts, watch 50 Insane Facts About Prison You Won't Believe. Or for an in-depth look at what it's actually like to be a death row inmate, check out what the last 20...
That was death row, Japan versus
Yeah, and that's why Japan has less crime and shit too, because it seems like their system is just straight to the fucking point, yo, and no favoritism. America has like 2 different prison systems, yo, 2 different court systems for rich people and poor people. Over there, you the fucking same, yo. But the fact that most of their, crimes are committed by people with some type of, America tries to say that too, like when it comes to like, especially like mass shootings. Oh, they're mentally ill, they're unstable. Yeah, I get it. But if most of their crimes are committed by people with mental illnesses, then why aren't they more understanding in their policing? You saying, and their culture, like if you go to court, oh, you already guilty. What the fuck you even doing here? What did you do? What kind of interaction did you have with the law in order for it to get to this point where you're actually sitting before the judge?
The garden belongs to the community, belongs to people.
The year was 1896, and the country of Zanzibar was a protectorate of the British Empire. Britain had installed a puppet sultan named Hamad bin Thuwaini to lead the region, a man that supported British interests there. On August 25th, he bit the dust, and it was widely thought that he'd been poisoned by his cousin, the man that stepped into his shoes. To say the least, the Brits were a little bit peeved about this, and the new man in charge knew that. So he ordered an armed royal yacht to get ready for a fight. He also sent 3,000 soldiers and a few artillery guns to the harbor to prepare for battle. In those days, the British had quite the formidable military, and before you could say, "You fancy a cup of tea, mate?" the two massive warships had destroyed the artillery, the palace, and had taken out about 500 soldiers. The war lasted a grand total of 38 minutes, making it the shortest war in history. The countries you're going to hear about today might have just fared as badly as Zanzibar if they got into a war with a military powerhouse, but we'll let you decide just how well they do. Number 10, El Salvador. The South American nation has a surprisingly large budget for being on this list at around 165 million. That might sound like a lot, but it's not so much when you consider the New York Police Department had a budget of 5.6 billion that year. It also had 55,304 people working for it. El Salvador, on the other hand, only has 35,000 soldiers, and 10,000 of those guys and gals are reserves. The country has some fighter aircraft bought from the USA around the time the first Star Wars movie hit the theaters, and you could say the same about its helicopters. As for artillery and armored cars, some of that hardware dates back to the Second World War. In the sea, El Salvador only has 3 patrol boats, so that's not much happening there. So this is not a modern military by any means, but you might ask if it needs to be. The country hasn't seen many conflicts as of late. Back in the 50s, when the US was talking about Reds under the bed and was paranoid that communism was going to catch on in many nations, it supplied El Salvador weapons to thwart an uprising if one happened. In 1969, there was the football war with Honduras, and from 1979 to 1992, there was the Salvadoran Civil War. These days, the military spends most of its time fighting organized crime, drug trafficking outfits that no doubt have a much bigger budget than the armed forces. Our next country was an ancient military powerhouse, but not so much today. Number 9, North Macedonia, formerly just Macedonia. You're thinking, hang on a second, wasn't like one of the greatest military men in history from this country?
Bold luminary, we swear to protect you. While we live, none shall defeat you. Yep, we're all in this together.
Country. Surely it hasn't gone that downhill. Well, things have changed a lot since Alexander the Great was taming wild horses on the plains and dreaming about his future empire. Right now, the country has 8,000 active personnel and another 5,000 in reserves. That's not so many people, but hey, what are you going to do with a military budget of $108 million? Still, it has a much better reputation than the military we put at number 10. It might be small, but still, the North Macedonian military has seen plenty of action in Afghanistan and Iraq. It has some armored vehicles and towed artillery, but most of those have seen better days and wouldn't stand out in an episode of MASH. The country has no navy to speak of, and while it has some helicopters and small pilot trainer planes, it doesn't have any attack planes. Next is another country with a shockingly large budget, but still a weak military. Number 8, Namibia. Namibia actually has quite a large budget compared to the country we just talked about, and that's a whopping $505 million. The country has a population of around 2.7 million people, but it also has a massive desert, and that's why it's known as one of the least densely populated countries in the world. Out of those people, 10,000 of them work in the military. The country owns 7 tanks, but they were made back in the 1940s. Whether they work these days is questionable. In fact, just about all of the country's land vehicles and artillery date back to a time when wars were watched on black and white TV. Namibia might have a big budget, but its weapons are very much from another era. For instance, it's said that the country has 6 fighter planes, but they're so old no one's sure if they even work anymore. Next is a country which might not have a powerful military, but has faced lots of war in its recent past. Number 7, Bosnia and Herzegovina. The budget for this military is $165 million, and it has 10,500 personnel in total. The Air Force has 0 planes, but it does have some helicopters that were made in the former Soviet Union. It actually has 320 tanks and 332 armored vehicles, so you might be wondering why it comes this low on the list. The answer is, again, those tanks come from another era, such as the American M46 Patton main battle tank made in the 50s, and the Soviet T-55 made in the 40s and 50s. You can add to that some anti-aircraft artillery, but still, when you consider that the country has no navy at all, we think it deserves the number 7 spot. Next is a country whose military is so weak it can't even seize power if it tries to. Number 6, Gabon. If you don't know where Gabon is, it's on the west coast of Central Africa. Its military was pretty busy last year attempting...
Like fantasy? You're gonna love this. Join forces with your friends in clan events and boss.
It didn't work. So when we talk about personnel, no doubt quite a few of those guys are new. A lot of people in the military who were pro-coup ran for the hills, were shot, or metaphorically speaking, went to the chopping block. It's actually a tiny military of just 5,000 people, and they're supported with an $83 million budget. It has no tanks, but it does have 70 armored vehicles. If you take a good look at those bad boys, you'll see that 16 of them are Panhard AMLs. These French-made killing machines were damn good back when folks were blown away by the high-tech game Space Invaders. That's the reason it's so low on the list. Its land forces are very, very weak. But one thing it does have is some nice aircraft. It has 3 Dassault Mirage 5s and 6 Dassault Mirage F1s. They might have been built in the 60s and 70s, but they were state-of-the-art back then. The Gabonese Navy exists, but the few old fast attack crafts and patrol vessels can't do much except scare pirates away. Our next country has probably more powerful militias than the official military. Number 5, Somalia. Back in the late 80s, the military was on the verge of collapse, and then in the 90s it was dissolved. Hardly a professional force, its military was accused of murder, assault, looting, and all kinds of corruption. Back then, a foreign diplomat wrote, "The inefficiency of the Somali armed forces is legendary." So that's not a good look for Somalia. The military did reinvent itself, but in a country that has seen so much internal discord, it was never easy making things right. The budget last year was just over $62 million, and in total, there were 20,000 active personnel. They were actually very active not long ago, fighting insurgents with some help from the U.S. So, unlike some other countries we've mentioned, the Somali military has seen its fair share of action as of late. If you look at what it's got in terms of hardware, there you'll find there are a lot of main battle tanks. Look a bit closer, and you'll see some of them, such as the British Centurion, date back to the Second World War. It's the same with the armored personnel carriers. They're more museum pieces than formidable fighting machines. There used to be an Air Force, but that all fell apart in the bad old days in the 90s. Now it's non-existent. The same goes for the Navy. Number 4, Laos. Thanks to the U.S., the country of Laos, pronounced without the S, can say it's the most bombed country in the world. To stop the spread of communism, the U.S. thought Laos needed a bit of hellfire. From 1964 to 1973, the U.S. dropped bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day. Laos was obliterated, and it was all done mostly in secret. A tenth of the population died, 98% of them civilians. Okay, so the history class is over. Laos didn't try to build a bigger military after it was partly destroyed, and the reason is there just wasn't any money. While it's more built up today, it's still very poor. That's why the military budget is just over $18 million. Laos actually has a lot of main battle tanks, numbering close to 130. You'd think that's quite a lot. But again, you have to understand that those things are antiques. They probably don't get used. The Air Force consists of utility and transport helicopters and
How you like my tree?
the Navy only has patrol boats. Laos is not likely to get into a war, far from it. But like its neighbor Thailand, a country now buying all kinds of expensive military hardware, the military is used against its own people when they stand up against corruption. The army, no kidding, has been accused of extrajudicial killing, torture, kidnapping, rape, attack against civilians, and starving minorities. And that's another reason why Laos is so low on the list. You can't call that good soldiering. The next country gets a bad rap, but its soldiers have done some honorable things. Number 3, Sierra Leone. Back in 2014, soldiers with the Sierra Leone military did a commendable job. They helped protect quarantine zones during the Ebola outbreak. That's not a nice disease to have, so you think those soldiers were well compensated. They weren't. Reports about the military say it's kind of a last stop for people. Back in the 90s, some reports said that many of the soldiers were drifters, drug addicts, and criminals. In the 2000s, privates were earning about $50 a month, and there was no running water in the barracks. The bathroom was a hole in the ground in a mud hut. So when you bear that in mind, what kind of military do you think the country has? It might have a $75 million budget, but if you can't take care of your soldiers, you're likely not going to get much professionalism. The military has 2 T-72 main battle tanks, but as they are a few decades old, it's very doubtful that they work. It also has 13 armored vehicles. As for air power, Sierra Leone has 7 helicopters and no planes. 2 of the helicopters are Mil Mi-24s, vehicles the Soviets once called flying tanks. The Sierra Leone Navy consists of some very old gunboats and patrol boats. They might not have done much fighting, but in 2007, British trained naval officers interrupted a holdup of another boat by some pirates. It turned out the pirates were actually Ghanaian naval officers.
They made a
Next
movie
up is
about
a country
that.
that's hard-pressed to keep its military from deserting. Number 2, Liberia. This is one small military with only around 2,100 active personnel. We say active, but reports suggest that 300 of those people have defected. Over the last few decades, the country has seen all kinds of conflicts, regime changes, and a civil war. And that's not good if you want to build a modern military. There isn't really anything modern about Liberia's equipment, with the Air Force consisting of mainly old transport planes. It has one helicopter, but that's getting on in years too. Believe it or not, it has no land vehicles at all. In terms of infantry weapons, Liberia has to rely on assault rifles and machine guns. There isn't really a navy either, but it does have a national coast guard. Finally, our number one country, who unlike the rest maybe needs no military at all. Number one, Bhutan. If you look at the Global Peace Index, Bhutan is high up on the list. This wonderful country, located in the eastern Himalayas, wins all kinds of prizes for being peaceful, not being corrupt, and generally being a really cool place to live. That's likely why it doesn't spend too much cash on its military. At $10 million or so a year, Bhutan's military won't be buying any new F-35s anytime soon. But it does have a military, and in it there are 7,000 personnel. The country is protected by India, but that country has been trying to help Bhutan improve its army and air force. There's not really that much happening, though, and we can't find any sources that talk about Bhutan buying any new weapons. The Royal Bhutan Army has had to shoot at people before, notably in 2003 when it took on 3,000 militants. In its arsenal of weapons, it has one very old armored personnel carrier, mortars, and various kinds of rifles. If the army uses other weapons, they're supplied by India. It doesn't have any power in the air, with the Air Force only owning 2 Mi-8 transport helicopters. This is certainly a very, very small military and would be no match for the NYPD. Now you need to watch this, the insanely crazy story of a tiny soldier. Or have a look at this, how a soldier single-handedly liberated an entire German-occupied city.
And when royal inbreeding went horribly wrong.
What?
When royal inbreeding went horribly wrong. Inbreeding.
World inbreeding.
Royal.
Oh, royal.
The rise and fall the last time. A man ate 100 zinc vitamin C gummies every day. This is what happened.
100 zinc.
I'm kind of curious, but it's just like, why would you do that? It's just like when people like get too many electrolytes because they try to drink so much water within like 5 minutes. Like, why? Why? Just why? You can't have too much of anything.
Yeah. Well, too much of anything is bad for you.
Too much or too little. You need salt, just not too much salt. And you need a lot of water, but not that much water. Let's see what else.
I heard a story about some dude who OD'd on deodorant.
Oh no.
How do you do
that? That probably was like my weird addiction. The people on that show are really weird.
Like, overdosed and died.
Eating baby diapers and
mattresses and shit.
Drywall. Drinking urine and gasoline. Crazy shit. The Sea Peoples in the late Bronze Age collapse. Interstellar voyage to find the second Earth. These are long. I spent a week in a virtual reality headset, and here's what happened. Why? Just to see. I commend the people who do who are the experimentees of this, experimenters. Because I just be like, know about that. CIA, Project Stargate, and other declassified secrets.
Project Stargate. That was, they said during the first part of the Iraq War when they invaded Iraq and Baghdad and all that shit, they actually found a Stargate over there. Because once again, Baghdad is ancient Babylon.
Right.
And so there's like, there was some shit. And then they started talking about the giants over there. And like, yo, all these stories started coming out once we went over there to Iraq in 2002 or 3.
So should we watch that?
Yeah, do the Stargate, John. See what they say about that shit. Because some people say that shit is real, and it's like,
The real truth behind the Men in Black.
Some people say that shit is real. But that'd be like
FBI.
So with any opportunity comes risk.
Oh, I barely even started.
This episode is brought to you by Dashlane. Try Dashlane Premium free for 30 days at www.dashlane.com/infographics. And never forget another password and keep all your online accounts secure. Periodically, the CIA discloses millions of pages in declassified documents that become part of the public record. In these, many top-secret projects and studies of the past are revealed that many find surprising, if not unbelievable. Some of the craziest may be rather embarrassing, if not flat-out damaging to the CIA's reputation. Let's explore some of the weirdest government-sanctioned operations with psychics, cats, drugs, and prostitution in this episode of The Infographics Show. CIA declassified documents that will blow you away. Up until surprisingly recently, the CIA believed in psychic abilities, and they thought they could be utilized to benefit the government. According to CIA intelligence, they also thought the Russians believed the same. In fact, from 1969 to 1971, the CIA was concerned that the Soviet Union was training its citizens with psychic powers in the area of intelligence collection. Evidence suggested that the Soviets' efforts were funded by a 60 million ruble budget in 1970, which was later increased to 300 million 5 years later. In alarm, the CIA concluded that efforts must have been met with success to justify this additional expenditure. Not to mention the large number of suspected technicians and scientists involved. The CIA decided that for their country's future security, they too needed to investigate psychic powers. To this end, the CIA created several programs to study remote viewing, or the ability of an individual with psychic abilities to perceive something that a normal person cannot, because it's obscured from view, far away, or happened at another point in time. In other words, something understood using only their minds and without the use of sight, hearing, touch, taste, or smell. And in absence of being given any information via person or device, or the use of simple logic. According to declassified documents, the CIA believed that every person possessed this ability to some extent as a means of self-preservation, and that though this talent is generally underdeveloped in the general population, it can be strengthened and utilized successfully with the correct training. The use of remote viewing by the U.S. government had three given benefits. That it was a talent that required little action on behalf of the viewer, had minimal associated costs, and as far as the CIA knew, could not be prevented or defended against. It first explored this concept in 1972.
People are not asking the right questions. They're not asking the right questions because they kind of think they already...
The Stanford Research Institute in California, under program SCAN8. It began with just a couple seemingly psychically gifted individuals, including a New York artist known as Ingo Swann, who was a Scientologist. In fact, many of the other study subjects were Scientologists as well. All trainees were required to have a 65% psychic accuracy rate, and those involved claimed to surpass this minimum over the course of their training. In other words, things looked quite promising. The CIA also reached out to television personality in 1973. To do this, the CIA placed him in a room shielded from sight, sound, or electricity. They then picked a random word from a dictionary, illustrated its meaning, and taped it to a wall outside of the room Geller was in. For the word fuse, the experiments drew a firecracker, and Geller sketched a drum, or as he described it, a cylinder object that made a sound. For the word bunch, experimenters drew 24 grapes. So did Geller. 24 of them exactly. However, when a scientist later drew a picture of a rabbit, Geller was unable to replicate anything similar. It wasn't his only failure, though his effective skill was applied in sensitive matters of government security, such as the proposed 1977 Gondola Wish program, thought up by the Army Assistant Chief of Staff for Intelligence. The given purpose of the program was to train personnel to collect sensitive intelligence using psychic abilities, and thereby determine potential threats, weaknesses, and methods for defense. When it became operational the following year, it was given the name Project Grill Flame, and its research was conducted at Fort Meade in the state of Maryland. Eventually, journalist Jack Anderson got a hold of the information about these CIA-endorsed psychic experiments and wrote about them in April of 1984. That same year, the National Academy of Sciences National Research Council gave its opinion, and it was not a flattering one. Unsurprisingly, the Army's funding was cut. However, that didn't stop the experiments, which were renamed and transferred elsewhere. By 1991, the latest program was codenamed Stargate. Stargate and its supporting research cost the U.S. government $20 million and included 40 personnel, 23 of which were remote viewers. 3 of these psychics worked at Fort Meade for years and were consulted by different government agencies on a need-by-need basis. During its run, Stargate claimed to have many unbelievable or 8 martini successes, after which those involved downed 8 beverages in order to calm down. Among other promising finds, one remote viewer was able to narrow down where a Soviet bomber had crashed in Africa, only missing the exact mark by a few miles. Another predicted that a Soviet submarine with 20 missile launch tubes would be sent out in 100 days, and 2, one of which fit the viewer's description, was seen 120 days later. When asked about Libyan chemicals, a remote viewer thought a ship called either Patua or Potua would go from Tripoli to Libya with them in his cargo. A ship called Batato did sail that route. However, what exactly it was carrying was never determined. Psychics supposedly helped with the identification of tunnels and underground structures in Iraq as well. There were even rumors that they hinted at the location of Saddam Hussein in Iraq, though this has never been unquestionably verified. However, for these successes, there were many flat-out failures as well. In 1974, a viewer asked to describe a Soviet airfield got minor details correct, but several additional ones wrong. Psychics were also unable to locate any plutonium in North Korea when asked in 1994. A statistician found that psychics working for the government had given correct information just 15% of the time, and incorrect details the remaining 85%. Similarly, a psychologist asked to evaluate their findings had little favorable to say. As a result, the American Institutes for Research recommended termination of the program in November of 1995. However, as crazy as trying to get information on Russian or other types of targets with the use of psychics may seem, the CIA has done other odd things as well. For example, the US government at one point tried to get recordings of critical intel by using a microphone-wearing animal according to a declassified 1967 memo. This plan, called Project Acoustic Kitty, was also thought up during the Cold War era as a way to spy on the Soviets, specifically on the Kremlin and those in embassies. And the CIA planned to train cats, renowned for taking direction from no one or anything save their stomach and insatiable curiosity to do it. The project started with one cat and a recording device. According to diagrams, a radio transmitter was inserted in the back of the cat's head and a microphone was placed in its ear. The power supply was embedded beneath its fur and down the front of its body, and an antenna ran along its spine to its tail. The operation to attach the device took approximately 1 hour to complete. However, the project itself took 5 years. It was difficult to determine the best placement of each piece of the recording device, or come up with one that could be both functional and indiscernible once attached. Then, of course, the cat also required training. However, despite their best efforts, the feline failed to cooperate. While this comes as a surprise to no cat owner anywhere, it apparently was unanticipated by the CIA. The cat would get easily distracted by things around it or wander away to get food, instead of focusing on the key objective during training. Then there was also its first official mission, which was a dismal failure. The cat was sent to spy on 2 men seated on a bench, but it was instead hit by a car while crossing the street. After years of hard work and $20 million of government money, Project Acoustic Kitty was, for obvious reasons, discontinued. While the death of the cat was unfortunate, there was no scandal when it died, and Project Acoustic Kitty ended. The same could not be said for MK Ultra, another CIA project that resulted in a congressional hearing when it was not cats but human beings involved in questionable experimentation. The MK Ultra program was given the green light in 1953 and continued for the next 10 years, though what we know about it for certain is limited to its surviving pages. Many, understandably, were destroyed to protect those involved. The motivation for the program, once again, was an attempt by the U.S. government to keep abreast of Soviet advancements, this time in the area of mind control. The CIA had reason to believe that the Soviets had been attempting to both make and purchase all available LSD for this purpose. This in turn led the CIA to conclude that the drug could have brain warfare applications, though little was known about it in the States. To determine its exact uses, several scientists agreed that an experiment involving unsuspecting participants would prove helpful. The government did this in Program MK Ultra. MK Ultra ultimately got out of hand and resulted in government representatives giving drugs to thousands of Americans without their consent or knowledge. The drugs were used to see if they could mimic alcohol intoxication, aid in hypnosis, boost torture endurance, or create amnesia or confusion. The government hoped that they could assist with interrogations as well. Unfortunately, many of those who were experimented upon had little say in the matter. They were selected from among the most vulnerable of the population, such as prisoners addicted to drugs, sex workers, or the terminally ill. 2 Americans died, and many more suffered because of the related experiments carried out by the CIA and contracted universities and research institutions. One of those who was killed was a CIA employee who had consumed a drink that had been laced with LSD by his supervisor. 9 days later, he was dead, after falling 13 floors from the Hotel Statler. After his death, President Gerald Ford apologized to his family, and they were given a wrongful death settlement. However, some suggest that beyond this and its other known casualty, the program had additional far-reaching effects. Some claim MKUltra's experiments are related to JFK's assassination to the actions of Charles Manson. However, there's no concrete proof of either. As shocking as MKUltra was, further paperwork has revealed yet additional drug-related and government-supported.
So he said, "Oh, the experiment was on civilians and prisoners and hookers," but then one of the first deaths was a CIA agent who fell 13 stories from a building after somebody slipped that shit in his fucking drink. Okay. MKUltra was some other shit, yo. That's how they was making the fucking Manchurian candidates and sleeper agents and all that shit. But all right, so where's the order at?
Weapons. And both the drop offs and everything.
Let's go.
For example, LSD was also used in the CIA's Operation Midnight Climax from 1953.
All right, guys, we about to bounce. I really got to get this painting underway, so I'll definitely be back in here later on today working on this. I'll be working on this some more later. So that'll be the next one. Shit. I varnished that one yesterday, yo. That shit is done. It has a wire to be hung, it's varnished, it's ready to go to a goddamn gallery somewhere. Alright, we about to go run some errands this morning. Appreciate y'all guys coming in the studio, chilling, watching the progress on a new piece. I got some more photos. I finally went and print out some pictures, so I got some shit I can work with. So for the next couple of days, I'll be just trying to get some sketches on canvases and get some more painting started before I finish up what I already have started. I'll let you guys see this one next time because I did work on that background a little bit more. If you can see, I did a lot of knife work on it and trying to get that texture. So we're gonna start putting some quotes on that one. But I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.